Today, the Calgary Police Service is warning citizens about a scam that has appeared to have escalated in the past few weeks. Since the start of the new year, we have become aware of 12 cases relating to what is often referred to as the Grandparent scam. In each case, con artists have been contacting potential victims over the phone, posing as family members or a friend in urgent need of cash. Often the scenario involves an accident or arrest while traveling, with a request that cash be sent through a money transfer company such as Western Union or MoneyGram. In the typical scenario, a grandparent receives a phone call from a con artist claiming to be one of his or her grandchildren. The caller goes on to say they are in some kind of trouble, such as being in a car accident, needing to return from a foreign country, or even bail money. The emphasis is on needing money immediately. In the majority of the cases, a second suspect follows up a call to the victim claiming to be a lawyer representing their relative and provides details on how the transaction should be made. This second caller is often very persistent. The victims are convinced by the callers and rush into sending money because of the emergency, only to find out afterwards that they have been defrauded. The caller specifically asks that their request be kept secret from other relatives. Often the supposed grandson says, "Please keep this to yourself, Grandma. I don't want Mom or Dad to know." The caller, the supposed relative, pretends to be embarrassed for calling, and like I said, didn't want anyone else in the family to know. Going back to June 2013, there have been a total of 23 cases amounting, in just the Calgary area alone, amounting to approximately $65,000 being stolen. Fortunately, in many of the cases, money transfers were cancelled. Otherwise, this number would have been much larger. So there were actually 7 additional cases where money wasn't sent, and in some cases, Western Union employees insisted that the elderly person not send the money because it seemed to be a suspicious transaction. However, in one case alone, the suspect was successful in conning someone out of nearly $12,000. Variation of this scam do exist, such as someone posing as an old neighbor or a friend of the family. Predominantly, however, the emergency scam is directed to grandparents. Anyone with information about this investigation is asked to call the police. The Calgary Police Service suggests the following crime prevention tips. Do not feel pressured to respond to a request until you have a chance to verify the story. Never transfer money or give out credit card or other financial information until you can verify the person's identity and the story and determine whether it's legitimate. And again, as I was stating earlier, the caller on the other end tries to pressure the grandparent or relative, and again tries to keep it to secrecy, so they don't have time to get off the phone and try to verify if that relative is in trouble. Ask the caller questions that only your family member would know the answer to. Ask for callback numbers in order to confirm the legitimacy of the call you receive. That's very important, that you do get a number to call back. Often these callers are calling from a blocked number, and if that's the case, try to get a phone number to be able to call back and confirm the details. When in doubt, check it out. Verify the story with other friends and family members. Very important to pick up the phone and get a hold of someone else in your family that can look into this. There are also features with certain phone companies that can block private calls. It's recommended you look into those options as well. And of course, immediately report suspicious people to the police. I will now introduce you to Deanna. Her mother was a victim to a scam a couple of weeks ago and has kindly agreed to tell her story. She does not have a statement to read, but will answer any questions you have. Deanna?
Hello.
So we haven't got a statement, so if you just want to ask any questions.
Maybe start with the basic one, is tell us your story. Tell us your mother's story.
My mother's story is she was sitting at home, the phone rang, someone introduced themselves as a lawyer for my nephew and explained to her that he had been in a traffic accident. No one was seriously injured, but he was hurt. He was with the police. He was in custody. And he needed to, and he needed money. Well, can you make it sound better? Sorry, guys. But they then immediately actually put my nephew on the phone, or who was posing as my nephew, who had a broken nose. My mom, to this day, swears up and down it sounded like my nephew. And he basically was extremely distraught, upset, crying. He'd been in a car accident. He thought he injured somebody else, not seriously, but their car was damaged. He was under extreme amounts of duress, and he needed, as the lawyer had mentioned, $3,000 wired to through Western Union to the Dominican Republic, because apparently this is where the other victims in the car were from. And so this is how the whole thing began. In order for their insurance company to allow them back home, or I can't remember the specific details, but this was why the money needed to go to the Dominican, because this is where the people were visiting from. And that's how the story began.
So the crash happened locally?
Locally in Calgary. And it was his fault because he had been texting on holding his cell phone in his hand and dropped it when he leaned down to pick the cell phone up. He was proceeding through a red light and hit a car. The car held the alleged people from the Dominican Republic, and then the story began.
So what was your first reaction to hearing about that?
They swore her to secrecy from the beginning. My nephew, of course, the person posing as my nephew, told my mother, please don't tell anyone. I want to be able to tell my mom myself. I want to look her in the eyes when I tell her what happened. So can you please just send this money, and then we can, we'll work everything out later. Of course, he's a favorite grandson. So he's under duress, he's crying, So of course, her response was, absolutely, we'll get it done. I'm sorry, what was your question?
Just your reaction to the whole thing.
Oh, you know what, at first, well, I didn't hear about it for a week, almost 6 days. And at first I was frustrated, and then I couldn't understand where everything went south. I realized she was being conned. After that, I was angry, mostly, and frustrated. Obviously she was under duress. She did it because she thought that's what was best, but how do you protect people? And when they're seniors, or they're that kind-hearted and they're soft because of it, how do you protect that when there's people who are that ruthless and mean?
It's supposed to be a little bit frustrating to a certain extent too, given that you hear it in the news all the time, and you go, okay, it's, what kind of fool would fall for something like that, in a sense, and then all of a sudden it's right there, plain as day. Your mom was obviously very was taken by it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's the thing. She was so kind-hearted, and she can be naive, because when you surround yourself with people that you trust, it grows a little bit. You become a little more naive because you assume people are like you are. So she gets this panicky call, and right away her first reaction is, I've got to help my grandson. Oh no, I hope he's not hurt. As things progress, the drama, she doesn't have drama in her life. The drama just fed everything and pushed her through. She was a nervous wreck.
It's tough, I suppose, to a certain extent, and I'm sure the officer probably speak to this as well. Got to be tough to say, well, okay, Billy, or whatever the child's name is, you can't really say, no, hold on, I just want to confirm it, because you don't want to be the mean one at the end of the day.
Well, and I mean, I guess that's the thing. There's time, like looking back, and I feel bad for my mom because she knows what she's done and she feels foolish in a sense, but they were so mercenary and they were so demanding and they didn't give her a chance to think. And because of the drama of the whole situation, she didn't allow herself that chance either. All of the emotions were running. And you know, like, I mean, I guess the only thing that I hope people talk to their parents about, or anyone who could be in a situation like this, is once you've hung up the phone, they sent her to Western Union, once you've hung up the phone, stop and think. Like, I mean, I think my mom was so worried that Joel was going to be in more trouble with his mom, and they had sworn her to secrecy. You know, it's a lawyer, it's somebody important. You know, my mom isn't sophisticated. She hasn't talked to a lot of lawyers in her life, and just the whole, everything was so surreal. She reacted instead of you know, taking the time to stop and think. She was just trying to do what was right, which was gonna help my nephew.
And how's she doing now?
You know, surprisingly, I think she's doing okay. It's only been a week, so or has it been 2? Well, a week since, I guess, everything kind of unfolded, but you know, I mean, I worry about her because she's a very strong woman. Obviously, she's strong. I tease her because she's been wiring money to the Dominican for money launderers, but but she, I don't know. Like, I mean, how can she have the same amount of trust? You know, she's a senior. She's in a place now where she felt really safe. These people have visited her in her, not in her home, but in her residence. Like, they've made it through the front door, literally. And I worry. Like, I want her to feel safe going to the grocery store and doing all of this stuff. You know, her first concern was, well, what if these people come back? I told her that I was going to be on, you know, speak on her behalf, and she said, well, I'm worried about your safety. And I said, they're bullies. It's probably going to be fine. I don't think anyone... sorry.
Any other questions for Deanna? Any questions for Detective Baker?
Detective, I did ask a question as far as how do you tell a loved one, hold on, Johnny, I got to confirm these details. Do you essentially say, okay, I'll get it to you in a second, I just got to make a quick phone call kind of thing? How do you stop and take that second?
Well, especially in this situation, in this story, they make it sound like Johnny's safe. He's in custody. I mean, it's all made up, obviously. And he's supposed to be in police care. Now, Johnny's not going to be injured or anything in that spot. So even though they're pushing, do this now, that person, and it's not just elderly people. Sometimes it's much younger people, and it'll be a distant relative of the husband or wife. But they make it seem so urgent for them to act on this now. They just have to stop. Because 10 minutes ago, before they got the call, they weren't running out to get money, and Johnny was fine. So they can wait another 10 minutes for them to call someone and actually confirm that story. So when I try to talk to some of the victims on these, who sometimes are elderly, is I'm trying to instruct them to take control over their telephone, really. So when they get that call out, get off the phone, and then make as many calls as you need to verify whether or not this is something you need to act on. No, I don't think they shouldn't take that responsibility upon themselves to have to be responsible for that relative at that second. They need to stop, think, just like as Deanna was recommending. Make as many phone calls. If you can't get a hold of one relative, call another one and verify with someone else, does this sound right? And especially if these people will not give you a way of communicating back to them, a phone number, start being suspicious.
Is there a, for lack of a better term, a safe question? You know, like if they're persistent in saying, no, you can't hang up, you got to get the answer now. Is there a question that people should have in mind to go, you know, this is how we can tell whether this is actually legit or not?
You know, and exactly that. You can't on the phone with them that second, because we've kind of recognized a huge pattern already starting with them. They already know what they want to say to these people. They already have an answer for every question that the person on the other end could have for them. So no, time is what you need. So get out of that conversation with that person and talk to someone else and start trying to verify that information.
So you don't advise on like a password, passcode, something like that? That would throw them off. Password, Johnny.
Still, I don't, because what if it's not Johnny? What if all of a sudden it's your best friend Ruth that you haven't seen in 10 years? So no, I really think that they need another family member they can trust, that they can phone out to start verifying that information.